Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about exporting renders from Zbrush, BPR Renders, into Photoshop so that we can composite into a portfolio page, or if you want to composite 3D assets into an illustration, things like that. So, I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm going to go through a very simple process on how I do that. There are other methods that we can continue and expand upon. I'll probably do that in a later video where we can get a little bit more in depth on how to get even more detailed, higher level renders. So let's get into it, okay? All right, so I have my Allosaurus. I think this is an Allosaurus. And I think the sculpt and the paint came out really cool on this. Let me see if I could zoom in so you guys can check out some more of the detail. I really like how that came out. You could see there's a lot of work that went into the actual painting of this. I painted this in ZBrush using poly paint, and I really like the. I'm starting to experiment a little bit more in my work with using 3D assets to sort of composite into illustrations. Which I think is pretty awesome. Especially if you, create your own assets. Don't That's the ideal scenario. I wouldn't grab from other people and then try to, I know you can purchase 3D assets and things like that. When you create your own stuff, you you don't have to share copyright with anybody. You don't have to give credit to anybody, and it's just more satisfying, in my opinion. Okay, so let's say you sculpted this guy or whatever you're going to do, and you wanted to do. I'm just going to talk about exporting as if you're creating pages for a portfolio. Let's just keep it simple. So I'm just going to pick an angle here. I think that's kind of cool. We'll zoom him maximum. So let's say you want to do BPR up here. Just hit BPR and see what happens. So there you go. We have a pretty cool render. It's very basic. I'm not messing around with lighting. We have our shadow on the ground. Let's go ahead and export. So basically, where the hell is the render? So here's your, so when you go into render, BPR render pass. All right. And then here's all your render passes. You have your composite image, your shaded, your depth, your shadow. You can go into occlusion map if you want. Your mask, this is going to be important. And your floor. We don't need to do the floor. So you can turn these on. You could turn on ambient occlusion. You could turn on triple S map from most recent BPR render. I'm not going to mess around with any of that. We're just going to keep it basic. So hit composite, and it's going to ask you to export. Dinosaur. Create a little folder, and let's do PSD. So we're going to export the composite. Let's do inside our dinosaur. Let's do side view. And we're going to export all of our stuff in there. So we'll do that. So it already exported. Same thing. Go to render. Go to the next one. Shaded. Make sure it's... Let's put down shaded so we know what's what. render. Let's do depth. Okay, that's okay. There we go. Shadow. Render. And mask. Okay. So let's do that. So let's, I want to do a couple views. So let's do another view. Let's go ahead and move our guy. Let's, you know, maybe do, that looks kind of cool. Do BPR, see what happens with this. That's kind of neat looking, huh? All right, so let's, I like that. Let's export this as well. So we'll do a 3/4 with this guy. So we're gonna export. So let's go back. Let's rename this folder 3/4 view. Create and PSD. Okay. We're just going to repeat this process. What was that? That was the shaded. Shadow and mask. Okay. Let's do one more. Maybe one like this. We don't have an angle of him. There we go. That's kind of cool looking. He's kind of walking away. All right. Same thing. Let's do a let's export this render. So we will go back. We'll call this, make a new folder. Walking away. So each angle that you're going to do your exports, I would create another folder and make sure you get them organized that way, because you could always go back and you can you know, figure out what you exported. So let's go ahead and do this. Shaded. You always have to label this one. All right. Okay, so we have 3 different angles. So let's I'm not going to do any more angles right now. I mean, we could do a top-down view like this if we really needed to. I'll just give you guys a little quick preview. Ooh, so we would have to adjust our shadow there, but we can normally, yeah, we would have to adjust our lighting. It's a little crazy. But you could do a top-down view, or you could just you could do the render and then you could export. You could just get rid of the shadow. You don't need to. We can get rid of the shadow by just getting rid of the floor. So we could do that, and then we'll have a shadow on the bottom if we really needed to. This could be a cool angle, like this. That's kind of a badass angle. But anyway, you get the point. All right, let's get into Photoshop. So, go here. So, let's create a page. We're going to do new. We're going to do tabloid and create. Let's go ahead and rotate this guy. So, I like, for my portfolio pages, I like to do 11 by 17 page size. It's a good big size. I also like to print my pages. I like to showcase my work physically. I don't like to do, you know, iPad digital showcase work. It just, there's something about the feel, touching, you know, having an art director or creative director grab a portfolio, physically turn the pages. There's something about that. Anyway, that's another video. So let's, so we create our page, 11 by 17, resolution 300. It's good for print. All right. Now, let's open in our documents. So let's do dinosaur. Let's do side view. And let's just go ahead and open up all of our renders that we did. So our composite is first. There's our guy. Let's go ahead. I like to do Command A. I'm on a Macintosh, so Command A, Command C copies everything. I like to go ahead and paste. Command V, we're just going to paste that. Let's go ahead and create a folder. Let's put everything in the folder. So let's just name our stuff. BPR Composite. And once we have everything in there, we could sort of get rid of this. Our depth, same thing. Command A, select everything. Command C to copy. And then when we go in here, Command V, let's bring that down. That is going to be our depth. Let's go ahead and name that. So this is a little tedious process, but to get all these renders in there, and I'm going to do it just with the side view. I'm not going to, you know, do this with every viewpoint, because it's going to, you know, or I'll fast forward because it's going to get redundant. And let's paste that in there. All right, and that is going to be our mask. That's very important, the mask. All right, get rid of that. And copy that. It's our render shaded. And V. Render shaded. Get rid of this. And the last guy, shadow. And I want to put that above the mask. All right. So all of everything's in the folder. The reason I put it in the folder is so we could just scale everything uniformly as big as we want. Okay, so let's say we want to make our dino this big. The cool thing about having a mask is we can go ahead and select our dinosaur. When you click on the mask, we could just click outside and select the dinosaur. We could turn our mask off. Okay. Here's the cool part with this. Now, let me just, so we got this, we got this, and then there's our shadow. Okay. So we don't want to mess with the shadow, but we want to take out, let's say, the background. Right? So you keep, that's the cool part about that. I remember having to do this manually. It really sucked. So go to each one and just get rid of the background because we don't need it no more. Okay. Now the shadow part, we're going to go ahead and duplicate this shadow. Duplicate because this ground shadow I want to keep. I'm just going to call it ground. So we can go ahead and delete that, right? So there's no ground there. But we go back over here. I actually want to keep that. So we will do this. Get rid of this. I want to make the ground a completely separate entity. There we go. And delete the feet. All right. Now, what we can do here is we can just kind of fill this in the back. What kind of brush we have? Let's just make it a hard brush. And we can kind of make up what the shadow is going to, because that's going to sit behind the foot. Right? It's all going to sit behind. There we go. Go ahead and get rid of that. Yeah. All right. There's our shadow that we're going to use. So basically, we used our mask to sort of clear, and I'm turning on all these layers. So that would be one image. But here's the cool part. So let's say, you know, you can use these blend modes. You know, and this is what I wanted to talk about. So let's say you use hard light, vivid. Let's just go through each one of these and see what works, what's going to work. So let's say we make that an overlay layer, and then we make our depth layer, you know, something like that, like a color dodge. Just go through and look and see what works. You know, let's just say we put it at color dodge and then our shaded. All right. Let's say we did a multiply on that. Our shadow, let's make that a multiply. Our ground, let's move our BPR behind everything, and let's make that normal. Our composite. See, this is where you can play around with stuff. the color dodge. I like the overlays too. Hard light. So there's an overlay. And then even if you do play around with these, look at that, that's pretty poppy. That's kind of interesting. So there's a lot of different ways. See, that's interesting there. So see the different effects that you can get by playing around with this. I'm going to play around with this and see what works, so you're not watching me do this. I'm going to fast forward. Be right back. Okay, so I am back, and so what we did here is I created a duplicate of the BPR composite. I made that one an overlay. All right, just so I can get a little bit more of the darks in. The render shaded is under the BPR composite. Then the other copy that I made of the BPR composite, I put a mask on and I started erasing because I wanted this area here, that I'm circling with the cursor, this sort of like mid skin tone area, that was getting blown out, and I wanted a little bit more detail in that mid skin tone, and you could see that it worked. So basically, putting in all these composites, sometimes you have to erase. So like you could see when I take that one off, see how that gets blown out. So I created another layer in there, and now it looks a hell of a lot better. All right. So these are so BPR composite, render shaded, another BPR composite with the midtones, or the shadows and the highlights erased, and the midtones I've kept. The shadow underneath that, the depth underneath that, and then my ground is underneath that. So my ground I've made 85% opacity, and we want to blur this. So let's go ahead and do a Gaussian blur a little bit, so we get a little bit, I mean, yeah, around there. That you could blur it as much as you want, but I mean, we don't want to go too crazy. So something like this, 6.27, whatever. All right, so there's the one. Now, the other thing that we can do, which I do want to do, right? So we have our ground here. This is the cool part about when you export images into Photoshop, is we can go ahead and we can make an actual ground that he's standing on, maybe some grass or whatever. We can just kind of paint something in right in here. I think it would be kind of cool just to right. And you get a little variancy. Let's bring down our opacity and just start. Just something basic. some element of brown. Get a little color variancy in there. And say we want it above our, we want to get some grass. Just to ground him a little bit. Doesn't have to be that's kind of neat. And now we have that. Let's label that grass. Ground. Let's call it green. So for this, right. Do a little soft erase. Right. And we could start to fade that shadow out. We don't really need it. There we go. So that's kind of a cool we can move him around. I mean that's a pretty cool portfolio page start for one angle, right? And then you can go ahead and scale him. That's what I love about this exporting ZBrush assets, is you can start to create your own scene. So let's go ahead and save this. My computer. Dinosaur, let's do Dino page PSD. And we still have the other views to do. So this will, we'll label this side, create another folder, 3/quarter view. Oops. There we go. Same thing. There's our 3/4 view. Same thing. You just grab all of these, and we're literally going to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to fast forward the same process that we did with our side view with this view, and we'll show you how that's going to look. Okay, so I basically did the same thing that I did over here, right? So let's go ahead and let's see if we can add a little ground to this guy. see if we could paint something in. You know, you can go back and refine this stuff later. All right, we just want something that makes him look like he's in kind of a foresty area. I want to put this above the shadow area a little bit. You know, the greenery. Make it look lived in. Let's fade that out. Oops. Make that a little bigger. There we go. Something like that. All right. Well, actually, I think I want to make that a little bit more green. Looks a little better there, like that. All right, so there's our 3/4 view. You can see how the page is starting to come together now. Right, it's starting to look kind of cool. See, that's a cool portfolio page. Starting to come together as a cool. Let's do the last view, and that'll wrap up the video. You get the picture. I'm gonna do a little fast forward. We're going to do the same thing, and you can see how that looks, okay? Stay tuned. All right, guys, we are back, and we created another angle here. So we've got him walking away. If he is walking away. All right, so starting to look pretty cool. We just need to add a ground to this guy. All right, there's our shadow. I kind of like that hard shadow, actually. I'm gonna leave that. Let's just paint in our ground. Let's get our green. See how this thing's gonna look. something like that. Right, just something to indicate that he's walking away, and that's it. We've got, you know, three different views, and I think this is looking pretty neat. You know, there you go. There's a composite page potentially for your portfolio, or, you know, this is one good way of starting to make an illustration with your 3D assets. So let's say you have a whole bunch of dinosaur renders. You know, you can create a scene, do a paint over. Hope this helps, and thank you, and please like and subscribe, and make sure to stay tuned for the next video. See you later.